My guest today is Mark Dunn. How are you, Mark?
Hey, David. Good to be here.
Thanks. What do you do for a living?
I'm actually a trainer. I own a training company based in Atlanta, Georgia, and most of my time is spent teaching classes. We also do some consulting. The sweet spot for our consulting projects are 3 or 4 people teams working about 4 to 6 months.
Okay. You're doing a lot of MVC work, I heard you say.
We are indeed. We're doing a lot of MVC work. I have training customers, and especially in the state of Alabama, that in the past have been web forms. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of their new development, they see some benefits to moving over to model view controller.
I would vote for that too. I don't know if you saw the big debate on that one mail for
yes.
list. I started that.
Awesome. A troublemaker, huh?
Your words, not mine.
Okay.
So we were talking a little bit about MVC4 and some of the stuff you're doing with that. What's
right. Well, what's really exciting about MVC4 is, to me, some of the support for mobile devices.
Yeah.
Because you always have a challenge whenever the user interface is very different based on the requests coming in. So in the past, what have we had to do? We've had to write a lot of logic where we maybe look at the HTTP request and we look at the user agent and we try to figure out what is that device coming in.
Right.
Well, there's some facilities in MVC that make it really very easy to support mobile devices.
These were interested in version 4 of MVC?
In version 4 specifically of MVC. So, the way MVC works, there's a separation of concerns between the model, which usually represents your data, and the controller and the view. And the controller will marry together the data from the model into the view, which represents your user interface. And we have a amazing routing engine built into MVC that is the glue that pulls all this stuff together.
Yep.
So what you're able to do in MVC4, you can create views that are specific to mobile devices, and it will automatically detect the request coming in, and it will route it to the appropriate view. So I think that's very, very cool. And there's some other things you can do with CSS, but really the way, how when you create a view, you name it something .cshtml.
Right.
Right. You can create an alternate view, and you simply name it the same name, .mobile.cshtml.
Okay, and I get this. So generally when I work with this routing engine, I'll have something that it's the URL itself.
Right.
Is sending it to the appropriate view, or actually to the appropriate controller, I should say.
Right.
So the URL
and the controller calls the
URL
view.
Puts that in the controller is responsible for getting the data from the model and then
marrying that together,
marrying it to the view and sending down the view. But this sounds a little bit more complicated than that because it's not the
URL.
But
see, that's the
it's
beauty.
something in the header, isn't it?
Well, the beauty of it is it's not complicated at all.
Okay.
Because you build your view for your typical UI for the browser the way you normally would.
Okay.
And then when you're ready to do the phone part of it, you simply take the same name that you've named the CSHTML file for that view, and you add mobile in between the name and CSHTML. And then you go and redo the user interface for that page to support the mobile device, and you're done.
So this is convention over configuration, right?
Exactly, and that's
so
one of the
framework just
benefits.
knows that mobile is a secret magic word.
Yes, exactly.
In there, that if you add that, then it'll detect any kind of a mobile device in the HTTP header.
Right. That's exactly right.
Send to that. Okay.
Well, and that's right. It detects the fact that a mobile request is coming in. You can go further, and you can get very specific to. You can write logic so that you can look at very particular devices.
Okay.
So if you knew that you had an odd resolution, I mean, who knows what they're going to build in the future, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So we never know. I mean, 850 pixels is maybe way too wide.
Right.
And we want to build a user interface at some point that's optimized to 220 pixels.
Yeah, a little wristwatch.
Yeah, or a wristwatch or something of that nature, right? So you could write logic to handle that if you want. And there's a wonderful tutorial. The ASP.NET site is a great resource. But there's a walkthrough that a fellow named I want to give credit to the right person. I believe his name is Rick Anderson that put together the walkthrough, the tutorial on using MVC4 to build mobile apps. He actually goes through doing mobile queries with CSS3, using the technique that I'm talking about, where it is the name of the file. How did you phrase it earlier? It was a convention.
Convention over configuration.
Convention over configuration,
Right.
exactly.
So you don't have to even tell, even in a config file, that .mobile is special.
No, it simply
It
picks
just
up
knows
on
that.
it.
That's by standard. You use the phrase CSS queries. What is that?
Or CSS mobile queries, right?
CSS mobile query.
I didn't mean to say mobile queries. They're called CSS media queries.
Okay.
So right there are keywords in CSS, so you can set the zoom width that you want.
Okay.
So imagine that you've got a web page that is 1024 by 768.
Okay.
Is the optimal size for that page to render itself. Well, when you go to browse to that page with your phone, if the site isn't supporting mobile in any way, what's going to happen? Everything's going to scale down, and you're going to get really small fonts, right? Usually
Okay.
to view it.
Yeah.
So with the media query, you can actually set the zoom level so that you have a media window of sorts, a zoom window.
Okay.
So then it will actually display the page so that you're zoomed in and you can read it, and then you can use your finger to
Swipe back and forth.
to swipe back and forth and read the page.
Okay.
So they're actually called media queries, not mobile queries.
Okay.
So CSS media queries.
And that sounds like a different paradigm than you wouldn't use that. With
Right, that would be
with
an
the
alternative.
.mobile site. You'd either build a completely separate view for your mobile site, or you'd have this kind of responsive design that you just described, where you're on a mobile device or or any smaller device. It doesn't have to be mobile. It just detects the fact that it's a smaller screen.
Right. That's right.
Then your same site just works better because you have a window and you can read the text.
It's readable. That's correct.
All right, I get that. And then I want to make sure I understand this. Because I've done a lot of work with MVC, but not so much. I haven't touched MVC4 yet. But we're not touching the controller at all. That whole routing goes to the same.
The whole
controller.
routing stuff works
it's
just
just
fine.
that view method. There's the view method that returns a view.
Right.
And,
And we use
that's
the
where the
same-
magic happens, right?
Right. That's where the magic happens. We use the same name.
Right, so we say
Right.
we
So if we-
return view of customer or something like, or just return view,
Right.
and it'll be the name of that particular controller.
Right. And if we use customers, like customers is a good example. So at that point, if you had generated a view based on that controller, you would have a view that was customers.cshtml.
Okay.
Correct. So at the point that you want to support the mobile view of that, it's the naming convention. You name it customers.mobile.cshtml. And then when the controller is evaluating that based on the request coming in, it'll either route it to customers CSHTML or customers.mobile.cshtml.
Okay, so this is technically it's routing, but it's not the same routing that's going on through the web config file that I'm used to.
Right.
This is a new thing for me. All right, I'm learning something. This is good.
It's cool. Yeah.
And you're using this now for building your applications?
Yeah, actually, we're reworking our website for my company, and we're redoing that in MVC. And I want to support mobile devices coming in to look at our training schedule and things of that nature.
So rather than building an entire brand new site, you're just going to rework the views.
Right. We just have to rework views. That's correct.
Excellent.
It's a thing of beauty. So now if we could just get GoDaddy.com to support MVC4.
Oh, they don't? Okay.
Not yet, but hopefully they're working on that.
They're not the only ISP out there,
Right.
You have an online presence.
Yes, we do. We have a website at www.dunntraining.com. And you can go there and take a look at our training schedule. We've started to offer something new. I call them the Lost Weekend classes.
Okay.
So we have 5-day classes that are pretty intense, that cover a lot of information. And we also have several 3-day classes. So in 3 days, we cover things like jQuery. We cover MVC programming in 3 days, assuming that you have some experience with ASP.NET.
Okay.
You know how request response works, for instance, right? So you're probably good to come in and go to the MVC class. And any of the 3-day classes that we have, we've started to offer those on the weekends. So folks can come in maybe Friday night. We start early Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, and we usually run class until 6 p.m. I provide lunch and dinner for the students. and a breakfast. We have a continental breakfast. And they're 2 long days. We do a long day on Saturday, a long day on Sunday, and they usually wind up flying out Sunday night to go back home.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, it's hardcore. And I stay at the same hotel where we run the classes. So in the evenings, we go out and spend time together and just sort of geek out.
All right.
So we've done about 7 of these Lost Weekend classes so far, and they've been a lot of fun.
All right. Mark, thanks a lot.
Thank you, David. I'm really excited to have been a guest on Technology and Friends.